I would now like to invite Marina from MCBI to present. Marina has developed the Jungal, which is a platform to match skill providers to skill seekers, and this was developed in response to some of her clients' needs. Marina is a respected management consultant and managing director of MCBI. She's worked internationally across a variety of sectors, working with corporates and individuals to bring their ideas to life. Marina holds a number of patents herself and has successfully commercialised a variety of products and concepts. She brings a blended perspective of the life of both an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur. Thank you, Marina.
So I've got 10 minutes to talk to you and to share my story of what it was like to be an entrepreneur, doing some stuff in my career and then suddenly finding myself being an intrapreneur. And I'm going to try to tell you the difference from my perspective on these two different disciplines. But before I start, who here has had a killer idea that is going to make them like a billionaire, or they know someone in their family? You don't be shy, most of us have got one, like a killer app, you don't have to tell it. There's something, you look like you want to say something, you go, no. It's interesting, most of us have some idea inside us that's going to change the world, or you go to a dinner party and then someone goes, oh, if only I had some cash, I could come up with this great thing. And I was no different. I am a crazy inventor. I started back in 1992 with my first business, and I had this great idea. I'd get all the uni students and we'd be able to deliver services to the local community. And that probably gave me a real taste of what it was like to be, what I've now discovered is to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't stop there, I kept going, and I've invented all sorts of crazy things. I've invented a thing called Voki, which you may or may not, probably won't know about. It's called the Voice of the Customer interface. And I had this idea that if we could collect data and from customers whilst they were purchasing, and we could crunch it up through some big computers, we could find out how happy they were, and then because I'm a maths head, we would then correlate that against propensity for profit, feed that back in real time to a customer or a bank, and shebang, they could transform their whole organisation. It's pretty cool, hey? Slightly complex idea, it wasn't so much an app. Well, that app did, or that bit of software was developed. I sunk a lot of money into it, went into some banks and what have you, and then all of a sudden this thing called the iPhone came out and completely took with it my dreams of being a billionaire and all the other things with it, and I lost my own money, don't worry, you can buy me a coffee if you pity me, but about $750,000. That is the risk that an entrepreneur has. But I tell you what, once you've been an entrepreneur, it's a really hard thing to give up because it is intoxicating. You are free, you are creative, you are quite often liberated from all the constraints of reality. And that in itself can be quite addictive. So I went on, I've also invented medical stuff, which still sells, and I recovered some of that cash over in the States. And what I did throughout that process of being an entrepreneur and an inventor is that I learned all about the power of being creative, the power of being free, the power of backing yourself. And through the day-to-day sort of rock and roll of being an entrepreneur and an inventor, which are a bit different, I also learned that to be an entrepreneur, you actually are a bit selfish. And it was one of the big things you learn. An entrepreneur will back themselves, even when everyone else says don't. Because somehow that sort of drive is going to push you through the pain barrier on it. But an entrepreneur is quite often selfish. The rewards are theirs, the risk is theirs, the whole, all of it is connected to the world of entrepreneurship. But I've got to tell you, the autonomy, the free thinking, that's why you hear these people say that they're serial entrepreneurs. Now, I was like that. I did that for quite a while. And then about 2002, sort of had to settle down a little bit. I sort of decided to get a bit more grown up. And then about 2010, around that period of time, my colleagues and I decided that our little, loose as a goose management consulting firm should suddenly grow up. And then all of a sudden, I found myself as being a managing partner of people. In fact, our slogan is, it's all about people. And I can share with you, sometimes that phrase is not said politely. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's all about people. But I'd left then this beautiful existence of an entrepreneur, and instead I found myself, like a lot of you guys, dealing with policies, constraints. My desk doesn't work. That's not how we do it around here. And I got to tell you, the jarringness of that feeling was extraordinary, because here I was in my head like a little freelancer. And all of a sudden, I was within a system, and a system with patterns and habits. And then we also decided through our expertise in the consulting world is that our biggest customer base would be large corporates. And we deliberately, in our business plan, blurred the lines between our organisation and theirs as part of our business strategy. And then all of a sudden, their habits and their patterns and their structures became ours. Sounds great, doesn't it? You can imagine me like a little firefly going, oh my God, there's a procurement office I need to go through to get this done. And I must be a bit of a masochist, because then I invented the Jungle. So the Jungle, this isn't a sales pitch. I'm more than happy to talk to, tell you about the details of the Jungle. But the Jungle was born out of that old habit of mine of seeing a problem and wanting to do things differently. From 1992 to 2014, it never left me. But the Jungle is a fundamentally different way that organisations, large conservative corporates, work with freelancers and with small people with expertise. Pretty big shift. We challenged everything. This isn't like freelancer.com where it's a one-on-one relationship or Airtasker. Our clients include banks and sub-systems, People's Choice Credit Union. We do the risk programs for Bendigo Adelaide Bank. And we went to them and their CEOs and said, hey, let's do this differently. And all those patterns and those constraints that they held, coupled with our own, hit me. And that's pretty much the day I've discovered what an intrapreneur was. And an intrapreneur is vastly different. It is a vastly different expertise. There are definitely some hangovers, that inspiration part, that complete doggedness where you believe there's a different way to do things, and this heart that you have, that you go, I'm going to give it a go, they're all the same. But wow, an intrapreneur, oh my goodness, and I got to tell you up front, I take my hat off to all of you who are intrapreneurs, because you are more likely to be resilient against conflict, when people criticise you and the fact you keep going against all the patterns and the systems and all of that is extraordinary. And your capacity to build a coalition of support up against sometimes huge process differences and people's paradigms is extraordinary. And I got to tell you, I had to learn it. It doesn't come naturally to me. The other thing I learned when it came to becoming an intrapreneur, there were two very big things which were a bit of a revelation for me. One was an intrapreneur has this natural bias towards common good. That is really different to an entrepreneur. An intrapreneur, and the ones I work with even now, have this bond to their company or companies as it is in our case, that is extraordinary. Quite often it's the fuel that keeps them going. That's different to an entrepreneur. And they have this capacity to see things, and weather the storm because they just feel like the collective good is worth it. That's pretty different. The second thing I learned between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur is patience. As an entrepreneur, we're rewarded for being impatient. We are told, keep going, go hard, not rock and roll, and all of that. And if you ever worked with entrepreneurs, there is actually a bit of a characteristic about them. But an intrapreneur seems to deeply understand the idea of if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. And intrapreneurs, they're totally different on that sense. They understand the value of patience, of chipping away, of eroding old systems, and they just keep going. Which, again, were not necessarily the skills that I came. I was more kinetic. I'm more like a move stuff around. But I will say the other part that an intrapreneur, the experience of being an intrapreneur gave to me was a different way of looking at teams and people. An entrepreneur, we consume skills in people. Opportunity, we'll look at you and go, you're a great lawyer, or you're a great funder, or you're this or that. and you will help me make my ideas come together. My experience of being an intrapreneur is that building a coalition and understanding that the heart and the people you work with does actually make the difference is quite different as well. You can't be reckless with other people's feelings or reckless with, like morals or ethics or anything, but it's probably more pronounced when you're inside an organisation shifting things. So, as I'm going to stay on time a little bit, is a couple of things I want to leave with you. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, the execution of your idea matters. Ideas generation is about 10% of the whole sequence. An entrepreneur will be free and will rock and roll and have a whole lot of fun. But an intrapreneur must be precise. You still have that same focus on being able to get stuff done, but execution matters. But the dream, don't compromise on the dream, but getting it done definitely is a key part of it. And the last thing I just wanted to really say is that I take my hat off, genuinely, to all the entrepreneurs who have this bias or this gravity point of common good. Without people like you, big organisations will fall over. They won't innovate. They won't be able to be agile and adaptive because it's people like you who drag them along. So with that, thank you very much. Good luck with all your entrepreneurships, and I think you guys are fantastic the way you do it. Thanks.